if I'm going to come on board, we need to expand the service offering.
We were having conversations of like splitting the business in half. This was like the thing that I was building for the past decade. I did not at that point want to have a business partner.
Really?
I think I just realized this understanding between the two of us like has helped so much. Like I don't feel like I'm like walking on eggshells.
You were like, it doesn't make sense to work separately. Like, I think we have like something really great here. It was like, yeah, let's do this. Do you remember what you said to me?
No. Thanks to Gelt for sponsoring this episode, but more on that later.
What has to change?
I have to leave.
Okay, I don't even know what's happening.
Okay.
Okay, so today we are talking about working with your spouse. I think when people find out that we work together, well, actually, I'm going to ask you, what's the reaction you typically get?
Oh gosh. Sometimes people there's no reaction or there is like an it's almost like a oh, how does that work? Or like is that like does that work? It's very much like a it that probably doesn't work. Does that work? How does that work?
So, curiosity.
Yeah. And
Okay,
skepticism. Because 'cause they've
skepticism.
thought about it. You could tell they've, like, thought about the idea themselves, and they're like, "No, this wouldn't work."
Yeah, I think a lot of people say, I can never do that. And I mean, I understand.
Yeah,
Like, we're definitely not here to say it's for everybody, but it's definitely for some people. And I think for us, it works really well.
yeah.
Okay. So I guess let's start back to you were a sole proprietor, right? Is that what it's
No.
called? No? Okay.
It started a corporation out of the gate.
Okay. You
So,
were you were a solo business owner.
yeah.
You started off your business in a partnership, then you worked on your own for the majority of your business.
Yeah.
And I have had my own business. I've had business partners as well. And then we came together in this partnership with Efficient App. So
Yes.
before I joined, your company was called Cyberbytes.
Yeah.
And I remember meeting you and seeing your website, and it was like very technical and it was like red, black, and gray.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, I mean, I'm more of a
It's clearly
marketer, and I was
working.
like,
It
it's
must be
working.
working.
His
Yeah.
business is doing well.
Yeah.
So I'm not here to say anything about it. Um, but then through our relationship and through us living together and meeting, we did want to dabble in trying to work together. And we took on a few clients as like on a testing basis.
Yeah.
So the first one that we took on, I remember it was a company. This is going to be beeped out, but it was,
Oh, yes. Okay.
yeah,
It's helpful knowing the name because, yeah,
yeah,
my brain wasn't going there. Yep, 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 yep,
yeah.
yeah,
So we
yeah.
did, that was our first sales call together. And I
Okay.
remember being really nervous because when you jump on a sales call with someone, you don't really know where like they end and you should begin, especially
Mhm.
since it was more your business. I didn't
Mhm.
really know where I could supplement. And to my surprise, I actually felt like you really kind of stepped aside and you let me lead more of the sales call, even though it was your business.
Yeah.
But I totally got what the client was asking for. He wanted like some automated emails. He wanted to automate his lead process, which is
Yep.
something like we, it's
I've
bread and
done,
butter.
you've
We do it.
done,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we totally got it. And then we put together the scope of work in terms of conditions.
Mhm.
And that client came back and they wanted like their legal team to review our T's and C's. And they were just like being difficult to work with.
They were sending over, like, updated T's and C's of their own, like and they're like, "Please review our T's and C's," and it's like, "Wait, what is going on?" Like, they were introducing so much complexity. It was a relatively small deal because we were trying to just test working together. The point of this in a way was like, let's see what working together is like, and less about let's make, money from this in a sense. So they were also kind of getting a good deal, but then they just started putting all of this stuff in
Yeah.
extra legal.
And we were even open to the idea of getting like a lawyer to revise our T's
Yeah.
and C's at the time, which is something we are not open to now at this point of our
Yeah.
business because we're really familiar with how we work. But at that point, since things were like changing and we were like, let's get a lawyer to take a look at it. But there was so much back and forth that it didn't even make sense to move forward with that client anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was, I guess, a flop failure or whatever. Doesn't you
Yeah.
can't really say failure, but it didn't work out. And then the next client that we took on was
Yeah.
and that was more of a marketing heavy project. And with that, it was gonna be more on my turf to get work done. And I remember you said, like, "How much do you want to, like, come join this project?" And at the time, I was like, "Well, I want 10K."
Yeah.
And I was like, "How much do you want to be
I was like,
involved?"
I don't feel like there's much that I need to do with it. It was very much more in your court. And I was like, I obviously there's gonna be a little bit of communication where I'm probably gonna have to like be on maybe some calls or talk with you through some things, but for the most part it was fully in your court. So I was like, I don't know, a couple grand, few grand, like
Yeah.
yeah,
So, put together that scope of work and that client moved ahead.
yeah,
And that was like the first time we actually had a new client on that wasn't like previously my client that we were collaborating on or yours. It was like something that we were really doing.
like it was clear on what who's doing and what money each person's getting.
Yeah. And I think that's like kind of a learning that we got really quickly because it was like nice to have that delineation and to be communicative upfront and to take it on as a test project. Because I think with partnerships, too many people like jump in so fast and
Yeah,
early, and everything's 50-50, where you don't really understand like where each person's strengths lie. And most of the time, like, yeah, work's going to fall more in one person's court rather than it just totally being cut and
yeah,
dry 50-50. So that was like another test project, and then I don't even remember what we took on after that, but it was like other little ones like that.
mhm,
And at the time, your business was more just doing like cut and dry integration. So
yeah,
if you had a CRM and you had your QuickBooks Online and somebody wanted to connect those two pieces of software, you would be like, I will connect it for you. But
yeah.
the problem with that was that so many people, when they come to you and they want to build an integration, is that they don't actually have the process fully mapped out. So the more that you're asking them questions about how you want the integration to work, sometimes you're seeing that they actually need a lot of work with their process.
Or the integration that they think they need is not the problem. Like something the some infrastructure needs to be built first before that could even happen. So it kept coming back to the like, I need to do more to get here, but I don't want to do more to get here. Because the first 10, I don't know, 7, 8 years in business was me doing, like, the full thing, and there's a lot of work involved on your own to be the integration person, but also the process person and the salesperson and the admin person and all the things, so I was just, like, burned out of that, and I'm like, "I just wanna focus on integration now," and then that's where you were able to help with not just doing the integration.
Yeah. And I think that's where when we actually had the conversation about working together, and I was like, I need to figure out if I want to like double down on growing my own business, also having like this impeding green card that's coming my way where I couldn't work in the States
Yeah, yeah.
and had that on my mind. And then, do you remember what you said to me?
No.
Okay. You were like, it doesn't make sense for us to work separately and
Yeah.
for you to double down on a separate business when we have like so many aligned strengths.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you come work with me full time
Yeah.
and double down on efficient app? I think we have like something really great here.
Yeah, I mean, we were doing little supplemental things where I think, like what you're saying, we were kind of rebranding Efficient App a bit and actually investing in a little bit of the I think there's a point where you were just like we were building a new website and this whole conversation came up where you were just where I was like, this is actually super helpful talking through the copy and figuring out what in a way is being sold, and you were like, "Oh, I just figured, like, the Cyberbytes copy was working for you. It was technical and whatever." And I'm like, "I don't think it's been working for me. It's just been there, and I haven't thought much about it." So, we had started almost building the business together a little bit, and I started realizing, like, "Oh, you there's so much more in the marketing and sales side of things that you can help in, that we can grow this business to be larger. So why are you trying to sell customers in this marketing area and why am I doing this integration stuff on my own and also saying no to a lot of work? Like, it didn't make sense. There was a way that we can leverage that to make more together.
Yeah. I remember like even meeting you and you telling me what you did and how you worked. And your business has like the best processes, obviously, like with what we do. You had like the best software in place and the integrations. And I was like, you're so marketable.
Yeah.
Like, you're so sellable. I was like, I just wanna, like, sell your
Yeah.
services, but I also don't like being the type of person that, like, comes in on a high horse from out of nowhere and, like, tells people how to, like, run their own business. I feel like There's just so many people that do that. So
Yeah.
I remember being like, I don't want to overstep, but I just like see an opportunity here. And yeah, you were totally open to it.
Yeah.
So then we had the conversation, same on that bench in Presidio, about, well, if I'm going to come on board, we need to expand the service offering. Because what I saw with Efficient App was that you were just offering these integrations, but companies needed so much more. They
Mhm.
needed like a full cohesive solution. It's like, how do you get your leads and what happens from your lead to the sale closing to the onboarding experience with your company? And we saw that there's like a lot of gaps in a typical business, but it's just so much work for us to like learn a business's processes to go to that level of depth.
Yeah.
So that led to us being like, well, how can we do that? And that led to a conversation about increasing our prices only to really support the larger scale of work that we were taking on.
Yeah, I mean, the what I was doing for a long time that I kind of built up was the idea of like a discovery phase and charging, initially I charged 1,000 for it. And that was essentially like versus doing free discovery, I'm going to charge for discovery, which is kind of like show me some of your internal systems. We'll kind of map out a little bit of what could be done. And then you can decide, then we can put together a scope of work. And then if you want to move forward, we'll like take off the money of the discovery from the actual project. And then I had, of course, gotten to a point where like, that's actually a lot of work. So I need to raise that from 1,000. I did it like 2,000 and then maybe it was like 2,500. And I think it was this whole kind of weird area where I think we both agreed that we also don't wanna be in the business of selling this piece because even investing the brain power to go in and understand someone's business and map all this out, that's a service that people that's actually quite valuable, and it's worth way more than $2,500, for example. So I think the thing that we're talking about is, like, how do we package this up more and be a little bit more clear on the deliverables of what this is, and maybe even give a little bit of, like, yeah, like a deliverable in terms of maybe setting up some of the CRM or something of that sort. So there's this level of maybe it's a little bit more than just discovery, but we need to charge way more for it. And I think we were like, was it what we'll do like 8 grand intro offer, like just get a customer together and see.
Yeah, we did like one off like that or
Yeah.
two,
Yeah.
and it was horrible because it was just so much work.
We put in,
Oh
they
my
got the
god.
deal of their lifetime. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
those customers, if you're listening,
Yeah.
like good on you. You guys took advantage of a
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
But after we saw how much work was involved
Hmm.
to the level to execute on work how we wanted to, like
Yes.
I think being a service provider, you like never want, or I don't like to be the person that's just like everything's out of scope and I'm only going to do this one little piece, but I see like there's a whole bridge that's burning on the other side that I'm not touching because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not my
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
responsibility, but I don't see this is going to work because you're not doing this other piece right.
Yeah.
So I think both of us enjoy being like, if we're going to do something, let's do something right. And let's find the customers that want to hire us and trust us to do the whole thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember pitching our first customer, like the whole cohesive year package, and they signed on. And it was like, yeah, let's do this. And
Yeah.
then shortly after, I think we sold like two or three more. Like it was very much like the right thing. And it was validated by like companies that were coming in as leads into your business. We were jumping on a call. And instead of you turning them away because there wasn't just like a perfect
Yeah,
fit.
the boundary was high there. Like, I was at a point where it was funny. I think you were looking at the leads that were coming in and how I was just declining every single one, and you're like, "Wait, what? Like, why? Hold on, there's something here." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"They are not the perfect fit of what I'm looking for, so I'm declining 98%." Um, which was it was yeah, I mean, it made sense to protect my mental bandwidth and what I was trying to do, but at that point, it was like, "Yeah, we could actually do something with these." And I think we got to a point pretty quickly where I think we were going to be closing another deal, and I think you and I were both exhausted by the idea of, like, making 8 grand or even 10 grand from it. It's like, that's hold on, this is like I would pay 10 grand to not have to take this on.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, when we first took on, like, the first 40K deal, because that was,
Yeah,
like, our minimum, or
yeah,
maybe it was 30K at the
I think so,
time, and
yeah,
then it grew to 40K, and now our minimum 60K.
yeah,
And that number is growing only because we're seeing that even when somebody was signing up for 40K, they actually needed, like, 60K worth of work, and we had to have more discussions about, like, what do you want us to focus on? And
yeah,
we're still
yeah,
seeing that. So, yeah, that's why recently we were like, let's just again find the customers that are like, I want these guys to run with it. And it's like, honestly, such a good deal because you hire somebody in your business to do your ops, your
Mhm.
operations, and most of the time, it's like they're working full time, and it's kind of messy because, like, it's harder to almost, like, trust the process when somebody internal is trying to, like, lead the charge with process stuff. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, and also what I've found in working with many companies is the person internally also typically is not, like, documenting and training. Like, they
Yes.
are building the solution and they understand the solution, but there's this level where, like, if they leave the business, then it's almost like, say someone's using a Google Sheet, it's like, well, they've color coded it in all these ways, and it's like, what do these colors mean? They meant something to this person, and I think there's just something to, like, there's not many people that would want to put in the work so that if they left the company would still be okay. That's not that's almost what we are proposing more employees do.
Well, it's our job, and, like, a lot of the time, like, yes, employees outgrow a company, that's perfectly normal, and they leave, and if your, like, process knowledge is leaving with them, it's disruptive, and we've seen, like, we are more stable than an employee in most cases because, yes, if your employee leaves, guess what? We're gonna just train the next person, and
Yeah.
we have documentation, and we have video training, and we're also available to answer questions, so, like, especially for a middle-sized, medium-sized business where the founder doesn't want to get involved, it's like I think the founders that work with us have had a level of relief to be like, "Yeah, you guys are here to kind of keep the ship going when it
Yeah.
comes to like, yeah, integrations and CRM processes, etcetera." Okay, but we just got into the depths of like the business side of things, but I guess in terms of being in a relationship, we had to have a lot of conversations about money and how we were going to like split the income that came in, and then you had your existing business with income that you had coming in prior to meeting me,
Yeah.
and you were like, I worked like 10 years to have that, so just like you coming in and then all of a sudden splitting everything 50-50
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
feel quite right. And then also for me, I had to like basically let go of my clients because I was moving to the States, so it
Yeah.
put me in a like way more vulnerable position, and that made me, like, really emotional, and I remember having, like, discussions about, like, a year, year and a half ago now, and I had to, like, be like, "As your wife, I feel like this, and
Yeah.
as your business partner,
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
this,"
Yeah. Yeah.
and you're, like, also trying to wear both hats,
Yeah.
and I think it's a balance between, like, you didn't want to just do everything I asked for and be
Yeah.
a people pleaser because you
Yeah.
were like, I still have to like protect what I've built as like in the business. But then
Yeah.
as my husband and my partner, you were like, of course I want you to feel supported because
Yeah.
you're like moving to the States and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I remember it was in the bedroom at Outside that we were talking about it. It was like we were kind of negotiating this split on like new customers
Yeah.
when a lot of the customer work at the time, at least the idea around it was integration, and that was like the recurring revenue component, and it fell more on me. But there's also this thing, it's like we were almost taking the tools that we had built from like, okay, which when we're taking on a customer, oh, this customer is more marketing, so you're gonna get more of that revenue. And it's like, oh, this customer is gonna be more integration, so you're gonna get more of that revenue. That was like a kind of conversation. But then you're like, there's stuff that I'm doing outside of this, like putting together like email newsletters and doing sales outreach and marketing that I'm not getting paid for. That's not attributed or tied directly to customer work. So if that helps us get an integration customer, I need to get a split of that integration work even if I don't do the work. So there's these points where I think like, yeah, that conversation came up and I think we had agreed like I think it was like a 30-70 split on those types of deals. And then I think like you were cool with it, but then you're like, but as your wife, or I don't remember which one it was, but you're just like, I'm feeling incongruent because of this. And we had this whole thing. There's a lot of going back and forth there.
It was not just one conversation. There was many, and I remember agreeing to, yeah, like some kind of 70-30 and sitting with it and just feeling like
Yeah.
not valued and underappreciated, and then I came to you with that conversation
Yeah.
and was like, I don't think I can be fully in this if that's how we're gonna do things.
Yeah.
And yeah, in the end, we agreed basically to like take out the money for taxes, take out money for business expenses, whatever. We have a
Yeah.
savings
Yeah.
account, and then split the rest 50-50.
Yeah.
And that's where we are today. And
Yeah.
I feel congruent with that.
Yeah.
Was that hard for you?
Yeah, so being in a business partnership before, like, I was in a business partnership out of the gate, and there was that level of, like, it was my 100%, like, it was my full-time job, and it wasn't the other person's full-time job. They actually had a full-time job running their own business, So, I think that was that part where it, like, felt so clear that this is my full-time thing, why are we doing a 50-50? Not that it wouldn't be your full-time thing in this scenario, I think it's just I've gotten burned from the partnership side of things, and then I trialed new partnerships, and it's like, "Oh, this is great," and then it was very much like, "No, this is my full thing." I am like, I wanna create content in the free time, I was creating, like, a podcast and doing all these things, and then I'm like, here you are, like, you have a family, and you're not doing these things, which makes sense, and that's cool, but you're almost looking at me, and you even said to me, like, "I'm looking for someone younger that can, like, drive and grind, and I could just come in and help in these other areas," and I'm like, "That's not what I'm looking for." So it was so early into us working together that I think in a way, like, we were having conversations in a sense in my mind of like splitting the business in half. And this is like the thing that I was building for the past decade. And talking about splitting something 50-50, that was it was a bigger conversation in my head than just like what is fair in that moment. It is like we didn't have enough working history yet or intertwinedness of things for me to feel comfortable. I did not at that point want to have a business partner still,
Really?
in a sense. Yeah.
Ooh.
Thank you to our friends at Gelt for sponsoring this episode.
We love Gelt.
Okay, so I have used a myriad of CPAs over the course of years being in business, and finding a CPA that understands business, angel investing, and also the complexities. If you listen to episode number one about how we met, well, it was not that straightforward.
I was living in Australia and also Canada and now have immigrated to the States. So finding a CPA that can help me with that cross border tax bit was just a nightmare. I had spoken to so many CPAs and everybody had limitations. And then Alex was on a call catching up with the Gelt founder, and we just were asking them like what they were up to, and they were explaining how they help with their taxes and the cross-border stuff. And I just got so excited. I was saying to Alex, like, just sign up, like, please, let's become a customer, because I have been looking for someone that can help us with this for so long.
Yeah, it was so funny. He was just like confused, but we're like, no, you product market fit right here. They have saved us probably about 25 grand the first year in working with them, because they've gone to the degree of like looking at prior returns and realizing, oh, hey, you over reported your income based on what QuickBooks is saying. Do you want us to file an amendment? It'll save you 7 grand. Absolutely. They've even like given a strategy around, hey, did you know that if you actually shut down your New York business and open one up in Texas, because that's where you're based now, it will save you X amount per year. And it's just like, my gosh, absolutely. And it's been so much strategy that no other CPA has ever gone to this extent with us with.
And they're also a modern CPA. So they're a tech business mixed with a CPA service. So, in terms of signing documents, they send over Panadocs, which are e signature documents. No pen and paper, no faxing. My gosh. And also, we have a shared Slack channel. So, when we have our tax related questions that I typically would just kick the can with and try to avoid even asking someone, because I'm like, what is this going to even put me down a rabbit hole on? No, they come back with an answer within like a couple of days, and we can actually trust the advice from their team because they're so switched on.
So if they want to sign up like they are us, what would they do?
So, if you are looking for strategic tax advice, go down to the link in the description and make sure you tell them that Efficient App sent you, because that will bump you to the top of the wait list, because they do have a wait list right now to get onboarded.
Cool. Now back to the episode.
For anyone listening, like, we did end up, you still kept 100% of your pre-existing revenue.
Yes.
And yeah, I think that's fair.
That yeah, I think the biggest yeah, I mean, of that
I
it was almost like we were we were building a new business together,
Yes.
new customers. I'm like, "Cool, yeah, makes sense. 50-50. We're gonna be, yes, we're gonna be working on building the business and building out marketing and sales. That's a different thing." But then you did bring up things too. It's like, if we don't sell a new customer, I can't just keep working and not make any money. And I'm also like, yeah, I mean, that's fair. Like yeah, my existing customers can pay and you can make money from that. Like that makes sense. So I think there was this muddiness in all of it.
Yeah, I think what I like about what we did is that, yeah, you kept your pre-existing revenue in the end, and we had to make the new business. So any new customers we sold together, we had the 50-50 arrangement.
Yeah.
And like, no pun intended, but I feel like I earned my stripes because
Yeah.
we were able to like almost triple the business the first year we worked together.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was rewarding to know that I didn't have to come in, not that, like, no shade to anybody that would do this, but I like didn't have to come in and be like, okay, now like you're supporting me and I'm like this lost person. Like I felt proud that I can be like, no, I'm gonna come in the business and we're gonna like make shit happen.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do business and we're gonna sell customers and we're gonna invest in marketing. And yeah, I'm proud that we did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, with you having a business partnership in the past, and I'll share mine as well, but what are the things that you had as red flags, like, you were looking out for when we started working together? Like, what made you? Because I remember even early on, you saw I'm kind of answering the question.
Yeah, go for it.
You saw how I worked, and I remember you were like, "Hmm." Like, you wanted to do more of it. So I guess I'm just interested to hear, like, some of the psychology behind that, of what made you go, "I think I can work with this person, and I think I can make them a business partner."
Yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of business partnerships, there's one person that is like the ideas person, and then the other person is the executor. And I'm not going to put a blanket statement, but I've seen enough times that like the executor will always get to a point over time of feeling resentment or disdain toward their business partner because they're feeling like they're doing all of the work that's actually required. And in a sense, it's like you could be an ideas person and short of like you're actually getting so much new business, but then if the executor has to do all the business and you don't hire someone to help with that, like there all these things have to go right. Like someone has to be valuable enough to grow the business and then you both have to be like, "Cool, we need to get someone else to help with this." And now this actually makes sense and there's this equal kind of component to it. But most of the time, it's difficult to do that. So the executor is going to be working and doing all this stuff. And I'm an executor. I am for sure like that is who I am. And I had seen that in the prior partnership that you're in, you were the execute like, you were the one that was doing the majority of the work when it came up. So, I think just through seeing that, seeing you set deadlines and being hard on yourself if you didn't hit them or if the customer wasn't happy, yeah, like, you're beating yourself up, and it's, like, because you wanted to do better. I'm like, "That is how I am." So, for us to both do that, like, I actually feel like yeah, it feels like I'm not making a deal with the devil or this unknown thing. It was like, this is someone that I know is gonna be as hard on themselves as I am me, and I don't think I've experienced that in a business partnership before.
I think for me too, I saw you as an executor and I saw the value you were bringing. And I felt like when I did lean on you for the clients that we had
Yeah.
toyed with together, I saw like you took like the project from here to here. And I
Mhm.
was like, that's what I need. I need
Mhm.
someone who's like better than me at certain skills that
Yeah.
I don't have. I don't
Yeah.
need someone who's going to know the same skills as me.
Yeah.
That's like one of the things that I had written down of like why this works and why working as spouses or partners works. I think because we have different skill sets
Yeah.
that we lean on. Like when we jump on a sales call or even with our customers, I'm very much more like sales or I mean, on a sales call, we're both sales, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But more, I
It's like
guess,
good cop, bad cop
yeah,
in a
customer,
way. Yeah.
I was gonna say like customer support, we both do that to a
Yeah.
degree, but I'm typically the ones like writing the emails, coordinating information, learning their business processes,
Yeah.
making sure that their team is trained while you are very much like now you get to be the technical one
Yeah.
that gets to build the integration and architect that.
When we're on a sales call, because I think the thing is even when we first started pitching companies, like, I was also sales, like, you were sales. I think we both came in and we were both sales, um, but I realized that I could start backing away from the sales stuff and literally just focus on what the customer is asking for and to
Yeah.
think through on the call if it's technically possible to do what's done, and I can actually disconnect from the money talk and whatever, and you can literally look to me and be like or you could say, like, customer might ask if something's possible, and you are like, "I think it's possible," and then you look at me, and I would be like, "Well, sort of, like, depending on this and this, it might be," and I got to focus my time on just being the problem solver on the call, which was a helpful thing.
And helpful for me too, because I didn't have to work through what the solution was.
Yeah,
I had somebody to do that. So in a way, you were like delivering the value the customer needs to hear.
yeah,
And yeah, I get to like be kind of more a passer of information and also think about like, yeah, what this would cost and, you know, if they have the budget for it
Yeah.
and how that conversation's gonna go. Because a lot of the time when we get on a call with a potential client, they're not like, "Oh, yeah, no problem, like, budget's no issue." They're like, well, they're trying to understand what this working relationship looks like because it's an unusual one. It's not a common business model that we have
Yeah.
to, like, overhaul the operations, to build integrations, and to maintain them. So, I think once people have a conversation with us, typically, they're like, "Yeah, this makes sense,"
Yeah.
and like, we had the last customer we did sell for 40 grand, I remember he was like, "That's nothing if, like, you guys are gonna actually do what you say
Yeah.
you're gonna
Yeah.
do,"
Yeah.
and, yeah, that's not a we're not in a phase of selling things that are just promises
Yeah.
now. We've done it.
I think there was a point where I realized I was in this kind of comfort zone of the business just being the size that it was at. So it had essentially grown the business to about 150,000 a year in revenue. And it was almost like stably like it was at that number. Um, and there's a point where I was trying to focus, how do I get more of that to be recurring revenue? So more integration, ongoing revenue, but it kind of stayed there. And I was kind of like cool with that amount, with the amount of work that was involved in maintaining that. But I think you were doing we'd find this whole thing fear setting. Tim Ferriss talks a lot about it. He didn't create it, I don't think, but there was a coda document where someone had built out so you can essentially fill it out. So you had done it for yourself for should I continue working with your largest customer? Because there was a lot of difficulties, some of it expectation set, large project, impossible expectations because the project is just so large.
Totally.
Working through if that made sense for you to stay or to leave, which is also you just giving up the revenue of that. And then I'm like, well, I should do it for myself too. About do I stay running the business in the way that I've been doing it? Because I'm definitely, you know, having those thoughts of like, do I try to hire someone and grow? Oh, well, that would be difficult finding the right person. And like, I've been doing this back and forth for like years now at this point. So the question was, do I continue building the business the way that it is, or do I shake something up and try to grow the business, or do I try to do something altogether different? Because I think it was just at that point is working in it for a decade. I think that's kind of what am I doing at this point? So this is before even we were like working together properly or
Mhm.
anything like that. It was like separate things. And I think I just realized in doing that, that while I'm comfortable, um, I would be kind of disappointed if, say, 3 years later, like one of the things the exercise is like projecting out in the future how you would feel. And I'm like, I know 3 years from now, I'm going to be doing the same amount of revenue. I'm going to be in a very similar position. And that just feels very comfortable. And I feel like I should be seeking more discomfort. And that was something that I'm just like, I feel like something does need to change. I just don't know if I was quite there yet to do it or know what that was.
Yeah, and I think you were really tied to the lifestyle aspect of
Yeah.
your business, and you built your whole business around you getting to do the things that you really enjoy, which is,
Yeah.
like, giving product feedback and, like,
Yeah.
building partnerships with other SaaS companies.
Yeah.
And you were like, "I feel like my business is playful and fun,"
Yeah.
and the idea of scaling a business sounds like it's like there's accountability and,
An
like,
employee
boredom
is an
and
expectation. I
yeah,
now need to like I need to actually have work for this employee to do. And I'm like, I don't even have work for myself to do some weeks. So like yeah, customers, more expectations, more things that can go wrong. Like it was like growing was all these negative thoughts because the opportunity cost was like my time and being and having freedom to just explore new software and build integrations for myself. Like there's a point where it's like I almost didn't have enough client work at the time that I got to just like automate my own business, and I kind of enjoyed that because it was playful. But it's also kind of silly to be doing that in a way.
yeah, and I think that when we did start scaling the business, I mean, I don't even wanna say scaling, like, we expanded our service offering
Yeah.
and we did triple the business, but it's not like we scaled like that.
Yeah.
But we were both congruent on it being a lifestyle business,
Mhm.
and I think, like, that also partnerships can, like, not work out if one person is like, "I wanna
I
scale at
wanna
all
grow, yeah.
costs, and I wanna take on work that's, like, not in alignment just for the sake of money," versus, "Let's say no to the business that, like, doesn't align with us and doesn't
Yeah.
excite us," and that's something that, like, I don't think you can plan. It's just
No.
worked for us that you were like, "This customer on the sales call made me feel like crap, or I left the call feeling deflated.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I would wanna work with them for a year,
I
and
feel like they see us as executors, just literally like a hired hand, hired gun, like, that's not the feeling that I wanna feel or you wanna feel.
yeah,
So, yeah, every facet like that was something that we can actually take into consideration, have an honest conversation about, and be like, "I actually think that we should decline this because they're not willing to relinquish control. They're not looking to hire us for our expertise, they are looking to hire us so that we can just do work for them, and that's not the business that we're in."
yeah. It felt like that alignment, like you welcomed me into your playful business,
Yeah,
and I had to let go of some of my ideals
yeah,
about like business because I'd feel guilty sometimes being like, wait, do we get to have like this much fun? Do we get to really like set boundaries? Oh my
yeah,
God. Like, did I learn about setting boundaries since working with you?
yeah.
Actually had a therapist tell me because I have people pleasing tendencies. And basically, the therapist was like, you should not do customer support or you should not
Well,
promise
you said
clients
you're like,
anything.
"I love customer support, I love
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
to customers," and it's like, so it's so convenient, like, I could take over customer support because it's so much fun, it's great, I'm a people person, and then your therapist's like, "You're the exact person that should not be doing that, because that means you're setting the wrong expectations, you're people pleasing, you need the person that has the boundaries to be doing
the
the
customer.
customer work," and I'm like, "But that's me, and I don't wanna be doing the customer work." It was yeah,
Yeah. I remember he said that. I love that. Like him, Dr. Sam's like the best
yeah,
therapist ever. And he like dropped that truth bomb on me and I
yeah,
was like, touche. Okay.
yeah.
But yeah, then what that led to is like I'd write up what I'm saying and then I'd be like, how does this sound? And you'd be like, why are you saying this is going to be done in two
"We'll get
days?
you this in 2 days," and I'm like, "We'll get you this in a couple weeks." It's like I would just take yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So other reasons why we work together. We talked about like differences in strengths. I think another one is that I'm a starter and you're a finisher.
yeah,
This one, like, we just realized this year.
yeah,
But basically, like, if we have something to do, whether it's client work or internal, like writing an article, let's just use that as a really basic
yeah.
example. If there's an article to write and it's a blank slate, as in, like, you're not, like, something did not just happen in real life that inspired you to write, because that you're good
That's the
at.
only time that I do like, if someone's like, "What do you think of Divvy?" Then I will literally be like, write them an essay, and then I'll send it, and I'm like, "Wait, I just wrote a blog post," and I'll copy and paste that in and be like, "Okay, well, I'm in that mode," but that's not most of the content that
Yeah.
needs to be done.
So if we're like, hey, we should, like, do this piece of content, and
Yeah,
then I realize that I'm good at, like, starting it and getting, like, the framework of what it needs to be, or even this podcast.
yeah,
Like, I'm like,
yeah,
"Here's the shape of each episode,"
yeah,
and you were just like, "Ugh, I don't
yeah,
like, what is this?" Like, we sat 3 hours, and, like, I remember at the beginning of the conversation saying, like, "Alex, I would like to walk away from this conversation feeling inspired and excited and not drained."
yeah,
And you were like, "I understand what you're asking for."
yeah,
But you're good at putting, like, the finishing touches on something
mhm,
and, like, editing or yeah, like, adding on your ideas, at the end, like, whatever that is.
yeah,
So I think that's also what works. There was also, like, another couple friend of ours that we were sharing this with, and they work together, and I
yeah,
remember, like, the guy was like yeah, he was like, "That's totally me, I understand that."
yeah.
So
To the point where they were saying and it's the same thing for us, where you may need my help, and the problem is you may think it's a quick thing or only want my attention for a minute, but I need to do
oh,
like, when I get pulled in, I need to do it right, and my brain starts it's almost like you take over my brain when you ask for something for a minute, that I might get engulfed into something for hours from that, and even if you preface it like, "I literally need 1 minute of your time, and if this is a bigger thing than I think it is, walk away," and I can't. Like, I can't do that. I have to then dive into it if there's something larger involved, and they had experienced the exact same thing.
yeah, it's really hard when I need, like, a green light, red light kind of answer of, like, stop what you're doing, continue what you're doing, but then you give me, like, everything in
Yeah.
between, and then it turns into, like, an hour conversation, and I'm like, "This is not what I expected." But
Yeah.
I feel like I'm getting better at it with even though we work in the same house, have started working asynchronously,
Mhm.
meaning, like, I'll literally record a Loom video and send it to you to look at later
Yeah.
if it's not urgent. If it
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
something that I'm like, "I literally can't do what I need to do," then I'll
Yeah.
ask you in the moment. But I realize, like, sometimes when I'm frustrated with something and I share it with you, you taking the time to think about what I'm saying and taking it seriously and even, like, workshop a few ideas
Mhm.
shows me that, like, you're engaged in my, like, problem solving, and
Mhm.
that, like, makes my defenses come down, where I
Mhm.
think sometimes when you bring things to me that I don't agree on, I'm more just like, "No, this can't work because blah."
Yeah.
And you're like, "Hold on, can we have a conversation about
Yeah.
it?"
I mean, the why, like, is even just in relationship, like, all this stuff overlaps so many things. Understanding the why behind the ask is sometimes more important than the ask itself. So, otherwise, you just make assumptions as to why. Like, I think one of the examples was something about, like, I had heard that a video had to be less than a minute long, and I'm like, "Okay, well, the YouTube short, it has to be less than a minute long." But in your mind, you want it to be about, like, 35 seconds. So my goal was to make it less than a minute, and I thought I had succeeded at that. And then I learned that, like, you were more concerned about the engagement and the fall off, that it needed to be shorter, and, like, all this stuff was missed. So, like, I had worked so hard on this video and showed it to you, and you were just, like, disappointed in it, and
Yeah.
I thought I was respecting the why of what you wanted done, but I had missed actually, like, the next level of it.
I didn't communicate it to you, and I like, all these things just show us the importance of, like, if you do something a certain way, just tell someone why you did that.
Yeah.
And I even do that now, like, when I set up, like, a customer CRM, like, I know I'm doing it in a certain way, you might do it in a different way, but I try to explain to you the context of, like, why I did it this
Yeah,
way, so
yeah,
you come on the journey with me.
yeah.
And I'm seeing a trend with more and more couples working together,
Mhm,
and that's not to say that it's for everybody. I think, like, we know so many people that have amazing relationships that don't work together. But, like, one cool thing I was listening to on another podcast, that's a podcast focused on relationships, they did a survey, their audience, and they asked, like, "What's the number one reason that people break up or you've broken up in the past?"
mhm,
And the number one reason was that they had felt that they had grown apart.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
And like the podcast host shared that there's this thing called the self expansion theory, which
mhm.
basically means like as a person, we want to grow, we want to be better, we want new learnings, we want new resources. So when you are in a relationship with someone that makes you grow and you get access to their knowledge and their network and you can grow together, like that's really fulfilling.
Yeah,
And I think the reason more people don't talk about that is because it seems transactional in a way and more almost conditional,
yeah,
and I think people are still tied to the idea of, like, this fairy tale love and romance where it's like, I think we have a lot of love in our relationship, but we also, like, gain a lot of, like, practical things from each other. Like, I gain practical skill sets that, like, make me a better person
mhm,
when
mhm.
I'm around you, and that's really fulfilling.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I what I and this is some of it just in the way that I was raised in a sense, it's like the dinner table, we can talk about business, and I know sometimes that was overstepping things from my mom's like, "Oh, let's not talk about business tonight," or whatever else, but, I love that we can have dinner or go for a walk and talk about business or talk about customers or talk about what we're stressed about, and I think there's something too in being in a relationship where I have stressors, you have stressors, and often, like, that may come from, like, customer work that we're working on. You can explain these things, and I know full context behind it, and, like, in terms of, like, having a partner that empathizes, like, imagine that we didn't understand each other's work and you had a frustration about ABC customer, and I know nothing about ABC customer. I'm trying to be there as a partner to understand and empathize, but you'll never get that. Whereas we can fully empathetically understand where each other's coming from and also try to work out solutions because we work together. So, like, there's these things where it's like, let's literally just go for a walk and talk about it. But then the cool thing too is I think also our customers benefit from this because we are literally going for walks throughout the day or having dinner together and talking about you and your problems and how we can solve them. And they're kind of renting a spot in both our brains in that way. Or like literally taking a shower and then brushing our teeth and literally talking about a customer, like, "I just had a shower thought, maybe we can do this instead of this," and whatever, and, like yeah,
To your point, I remember when I had my own customers and I had to, like, talk through things because things were, whatever, like, need to workshop through things,
yeah,
and I remember at one point we were out for a walk and you were like, "My cup's just too empty to, like, help you work through this,"
yeah,
and I remember being like, "Yeah, I understand," because that's something we had, like, agreed upon previously to always, like, communicate if one of us is, like, trying to take something that doesn't exist from the other person. If you can't
yeah,
give, you can't give.
yeah,
So, I think that with our shared customers, what's cool is that we do get to like, we do have the shared stress. Like, there's no like, if my cup's empty because of something that happened that's work related, it's probably like your cup's empty too.
yeah, yeah,
And yeah, it's like when you're working through something, it's for the benefit of both of us. Cause otherwise, it's like you have your own stress in your job, and then you have your partner's job and their stress,
yeah.
and then you're trying to help them with their stress, but it's not like actually helping you in any way other than like just your relationship.
Well, I mean, this is an area that's super interesting too, that I haven't experienced in other relationships because you and I could, like, sit down and wanna have some quality time to, like, watch a movie, but
Mhm.
there could be we're obviously connected, there's a point where, like, with the support desk, like, my phone will get alerted, and I feel like for me to actually relax and enjoy the movie, I might need to just check and be like, "This is not urgent," or "This is urgent." If something urgent pops up, I may just be like, "I actually have to take this," and in prior relationships, it's been, like, a frustration point, or it's like, "You promised that we would watch this tonight," and whereas I think, like, since we're both in business, we understand that, "Great, I will be here, I will be not present, and this won't actually be quality time, so should we be doing this right now?" So you encouraged me super early on, "No, no, no, we'll watch this later, go do what you need to do," and I might just spend a half hour, send off an email, and, like, "I am here, I am back, I am present," and this understanding between the 2 of us, like, has helped so much, because then it's also like I don't feel bad when this stuff comes up too, or have to hide it, or feel like I'm, like, walking on eggshells where it's like, "Can you tell that I'm not paying attention right now because my head is elsewhere?" Or there's even a point where, like, you've called it out, it's like, "You don't seem present." It's like, "Yeah, I'm thinking through whatever," and it's like, "You should go deal with that," but not feeling in any way like frustration toward me or vice versa.
Yeah, I remember, like, even vice versa, the time we were watching a movie, and I remember it was, like, 20 minutes in, and I was
Yeah,
like, "I can't do this, like,
yeah,
I really just need to go answer this email,"
yeah,
and you were like, "Okay," and I remember just being like, "This is so nice.
yeah,
I have, like, so much flexibility
yeah,
because I had that feeling of, like, I'm interrupting what we're doing, and like, to follow on from that, it's like, if it's a shared customer and
yeah,
you're going to deal with it,
yeah,
it
it's
actually fills up my cup
yeah,
because I'm
yeah,
like, "He's dealing with
yeah,
it. I
yes,
don't have to."
yeah,
So, it's almost like you're doing something nice for us as a
yes,
couple when you are dealing with it on your own.
yeah.
Yeah, and I guess vice versa.
Yeah. I think there's something like a sub part of this that's interesting also, where in being in a relationship and, like, maybe needing to get work done, we also respect what it takes to get into the mode of wanting to work. Which is also, like,
Oh,
a component that has been really unique, where I know in prior relationships, I've been, like, not in the mood to work, but I need to get something done, and maybe I need to procrastinate a little bit, watch a YouTube video or do something stupid, or even play a video game, um, before rolling into something, and any other, partner of mine would be like, "I thought you had to work," or, like, all these things, and I just know these things where it's like I'm almost hiding what I'm doing, but it's like I'm doing this for a reason. I don't quite know what that reason is, and I think you and I talked so much through it that the reason is to get us into the mode of work, and sometimes that requires us to not be working or doing something else before doing it. So you were encouraging me, and I was encouraging you. If you're not really in the mode of work, like, let's watch a show real quick, or let's play a quick video game. Like, we do these things where it's like, let's literally do the complete opposite. Or if I walk in, you're like, "I'm gonna go work on XYZ customer," and then I walk in and you're watching a beauty YouTube video, for example, I'm not like, "Oh, I thought you were gonna work on customer work." Like, it's just an unspoken, "I got it, I understand, and don't even try to hide this from me." Like, literally just do it, and I think that's been really unique.
I, like, love the grace that you've, like, shown me that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember feeling at times, like, at the beginning, especially when you're, like, trying to figure out how things are working and you're like, I know I said I was going to do this today, but I'm not working on it right now. But like I think this also goes with like a trend that's becoming more common. I think like remote work was like all the rage through the pandemic, but now I think like the next thing is a non-linear workday,
Mhm.
which is like more and more people are realizing that we're humans and working from 9 to 5 is not what's going to suit somebody.
Yeah.
And there's times where yeah, I might want to work out in the morning or go for a walk
Yeah.
or just take like a really slow morning and then work from 7 to midnight. And it's dark in our place and it's not sunny out. I don't have FOMO and I'm really focused.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be able to get to do that.
Yeah. There's points where, like, you could be working and I could be playing,
Yeah,
literally sitting
yeah.
next to each other, and, yeah, there's no feeling of, "I need to hide this," and that, like, I don't even know how to explain how nice it is to have that with your partner, and it almost needs to exist if you're working with your partner because otherwise, like, yeah, like, that resentment, walking on eggshells, like, you will resent the person that is playing when you're working and all of that stuff. Like, I could literally be working on building out new website pages and stuff like that, and you could be playing a video game. And I know there's points where you even brought up to me where you're like, "I feel like this week you were in such a work grind mode, and I'm not, and I feel bad." And
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
"Don't feel bad because I'm just trying to take advantage of this motivation and drive that I have, and I know that maybe next week or the week after or whatever, like, you will do what you need to do when it needs to be done, and I maybe wanna play at that point." And it's really nice to be able to do that, but it's like this 50-50 in everything that we're doing, but it's in time. It will be like, maybe it's this month I'm doing this, and next month you're doing it, or maybe it's, like, 6 months from now you're doing it, and I'm like, it doesn't matter when, it's we've shown each other that we will pick up the slack when it's needed, and it allows for grace in the daily.
Yeah, there's an ebb and flow.
Yeah.
Okay. If we were to break up, do you think you would want to work with another partner? As in, like, what I'm asking for is not like, this isn't that deep. It's
Yeah,
more
yeah.
just like, is this a type of relationship that you think for you, it's something that suits you and you would do again?
Yeah, I would I the truth of the matter is the type of person it would require. I think it's easy to also just be in a relationship and be like, "It would be cool to work together." I think a lot of, like, couple friends of ours, like, "Let's try a side business or something," and I think that's cool, but there's so much that works for the way that you and I are that make it work. I think it would be and that's where I think just the way that we are together, like, there's so much it would be so difficult to find this. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I would like to, like, I'm saying that would be a nice thing to do. I don't know if that would exist or be able to happen again. So, like, I don't think it's likely, which is also one of those other things that, like, values the relationship so much because I realize what we have.
Yeah. I think for me, like, I think about often how much like fruitfulness our working relationship has brought to my life. I feel like I get to be a part of this thing that's like unusual and it feels, like, very exciting for me, and I just, like, love the energy that's, like, we're doing this in our house right now,
Yeah.
and we get to both podcast together,
Yeah.
and then we were like, tonight we're gonna relax together, and I just, like, really like the synergy. So
Yeah.
for me, it just feels like it makes my life more rich being in a partnership that, like, crosses over between career and then just, like, a traditional relationship.
Yeah.
Okay. I think this wraps up this episode about working together with your spouse.
Cool.
Cheers to many more years. Let's end every episode with spirit fingers.
Spirit
I
fingers?
don't
I don't
know,
know
it
if that's
just
a
feels like
thing.
the right thing to do. That's all.
Coming up next. Every single decision is so granular. You almost need a company to move fast and try things to have better experiences.
Traditionally, companies pitch investors, and we have never invested in a company that way.
You should not start a business unless you want to make very little money, but grow a lot.
When I think about companies that I would want to invest in and where my interests are, like, I don't want to invest in any of those companies.
There's certain deals that you and I have invested in, and they just said, hey, company, you need Alex and Andra on your cap table because they're just like kick-ass angel investors. Like, you just want them in your court. The more you trust the people around you, the easier it is to do business. Building trust with a stranger is a lot of work.